Good morning. Welcome back to the Red Mic. Happy Wednesday. Glad you're here. Today's Red Mic message: do your homework first. Back when I was coaching kid football, every practice ended the same way. We'd bring the kids in, we'd take a knee, we'd talk for a minute or two about the day. Now, I would usually start with two simple things. This is what we did well. This is what we need to work on. I'd tell them I was proud of them because, particularly at that level, effort matters. They're 11 years old, for goodness sakes, and they're still trying to figure out how all of this stuff works. But then I'd always ask a question. Everybody get their homework done before practice. Practice started at 5 o'clock, which meant the kids had a little bit of time, not a lot, but a little bit of time after school to get home, grab a snack, take care of some, if not all of their assignments before they ever put on their cleats. And I wanted them to understand that something that a lot of adults don't ever quite figure out. Football was not their first job. Being a student was. Now, every team always has a kid who is the question kid. I always had one like that. They're usually among my favorite kids. It would eventually get to the point where when I would say, anybody have any questions? And then I'd just point at him because, I knew he was going to have a question. Sometimes the questions made sense. Sometimes they didn't, but the end of the lesson was always the same. I would stress upon them that taking care of their homework, their schoolwork, was important because it was their most important job. And that if you don't do your homework, your responsibilities, the basics, eventually they catch up to you. And when they catch up to you, they don't just affect you, they affect your whole team. Now, in pre-middle school football, what does that mean? You don't do your homework, your grades suffer. Maybe you get a note home from the teacher. Maybe you get a bad grade. And if your parents did this, I had their back 100%. Maybe they say, well, Bobby can't play anymore because Bobby can't handle it. And I'd say, okay, I understand completely. In fact, that was always a message I would tell the parents in the first meeting I had with the parents. I would always tell the parents that, but then I would also tell them that, looking just at the straight statistics, if they thought that they had the next Vince Young, they very well might be right, but the statistics don't bear that out. So I would always tell them that, you know, football is just a sprinkling of everything else in their life. And their most important thing right now is to be a student, to be a kid, all of that. So that was the lesson I always tried to teach the parents, and I would reinforce it at the end of every practice to make sure the kids understood it as well. And unfortunately, you still see it in the workplace. People want the title before they've done the preparation. They think, well, I went to a great school and I've got that great degree on the wall, so, you know, you should entitle me. No. They want to lead the meeting, but they don't read the briefing. They want to run the project, but they didn't do the planning. They want the credit for the win, but they skipped the boring stuff that makes that win possible. Now, in government work, I've seen it play out a thousand different ways. Somebody wants a big policy announcement, but they've not done the background work. They want to run a program, but they haven't learned the rules that program works under. They want to change the system without understanding why the system was built the way it was in the first place. And those are some of the lessons that I've been trying to tell you in these things, because these red mic messages are the leadership and life lessons I picked up from my 25 years as a public servant, 16 years as a youth football coach and scouting volunteer, and 10 years as a mediocre athlete with far more heart than actual physical ability. You've got to understand there is an adult version of not doing your homework, and eventually it shows. You see it in business, the entrepreneur who wants the exciting part of launching something new, but they ignore the accounting. The manager who wants to inspire people, but won't do the hard work of setting expectations and following through. And the employee who wants the promotion, they want the raise, but they haven't mastered the job they already have. Everybody likes the game on Friday night. Nobody likes the hard work on Tuesday. But the Friday night scoreboard is usually decided by what happens on Tuesday. And the same thing is true in leadership and life. The exciting moments, the big win, the public recognition, the promotion, the successful project, those are the things that are visible, but they're almost always built on a pile of quiet, boring preparation that nobody ever sees. The emails you answered, the research you did, the planning you finished, the responsibilities you handled when nobody else was watching. That's your homework. And if you don't do it, eventually it will catch up with you. Because, well, the truth of the matter is the basics don't go away because you ignore them. They just wait. So whether you're a kid football player, a young professional starting your career, or someone sitting in that leadership chair, the rule is still the same. You handle the necessary stuff first. You do the homework. Because when the moment comes where the team needs you, the preparation you did yesterday is what allows you to show up ready today. And this is not a new concept. In scouting, the motto is simple: be prepared. It's not be ready when it's convenient. It's not be ready when somebody reminds you. It's be prepared. That means all the time. You got to be ready at a moment's notice. You've already done the work before that moment arrives. You've already taken care of the basics, so you're not scrambling when it counts. Responsibility comes before recognition. The work that feels boring is often the work that makes everything else possible. So if you take care of the basics first, the homework, the preparation, the fundamentals, you give you and your team the best chance to succeed when the real moment arrives. Play for Friday night, but work like it's Tuesday. And that's today's Red Mike message. I hope you found it interesting or helpful. I hope you're able to put some of these things in place in your own life. That's why I do these things. I love you guys. Thanks for being here. Please give me a like, a follow, and a share. I'd appreciate that a whole lot. If you think I'm full of it, let me know in the comments. I'd be more than happy to debate you on these subjects. I'll see you next time. And until next time, don't forget, as always, life is short. Drink the bourbon.